The Metaverse is emerging as the next big technology platform and promises to be the next frontier for human experiences on the internet. Into the Metaverse covers companies, technologies, and trends that are bringing these promises to life. Join creator and host Jonathan Ross-Friedman, founder and CEO of Supersocial, as he interviews the brilliant minds that are building, shaping, and investing in the Metaverse.
Welcome to Into the Metaverse, where we help make sense of the Metaverse through deep interviews with the brilliant minds who build, create for, and invest in the Metaverse. I'm Jan, and joining me today is Jay Lee, CEO of Naver Z US. Naver is the South Korean internet giant, which among other things own and operates Zepeto, which with over 300 million registered users is the fastest growing avatar platform in Asia. It is most popular among Gen Z, who express themselves while meeting, collaborating, and creating with others on the platform. Jay, delighted to have you on Into the Metaverse.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Jay, let's dig in. The first thing I always ask every guest, and in a way that kind of contribute to the overall consensus creation of what is the Metaverse really, I'd like to ask you, for you, what is the Metaverse?
This is mostly asked question, and I don't really have a gut to define what it is. I can share my observation. I think some people are focusing more on creator economy. Some focus on technologies like VR, AR, blockchain, NFT, or ideologies like philosophies like Web3. I think when people talk about Metaverse, they're referring to this kind of blurred boundaries and intersection of entertainment, social media, online community, and games. Yeah, that's my observation.
And it's interesting because I think obviously a lot of the things that I believe are quite fundamental to what the Metaverse could become in my mind is the fact that it's truly immersive. It's this persistent network of virtual worlds. You experience it through the lens of a 3D avatar where you use to express your kind of personality and creativity. And it has that sort of sense of hyper-social virtual environments, all of which have been around in quote-unquote video games for quite a while, and all of which in Asia has always played a really important role, especially avatars. None of that is really new. And so how much do you think part of where we're heading with quote-unquote the Metaverse is truly going to continue and be inspired by what we've seen with video games over the last 20 years?
Yeah, I think what we've been seeing in the video game space, that would lay the foundation of what the experience would be like. But I think there should be a little different angle to be considered. For example, a lot of games are focusing more on the value-wise, like dominating, competition, mastery type of things. So that usually speak to more competitive, analytical, like a driven type of people, let's say. But what I've been seeing in Zepeto as it's skewed towards more female and LGBTQ audience, and they really interested in and appreciate this value that they can get to express and connect rather than competing with one another, but more like encouraging one another and cultivate this collaborative spirit through the co-creation and co-promotion collaboration. So we can do the same thing for different purposes. So how people share their values, even doing the same activities and in a similar settings or utilizing similar technologies, I think that's where we have to look at when we look at how the Metaverse evolves.
I mean, when I came across Zepeto for the first time, which I think was probably 2 years ago, when in conjunction kind of with starting Supersocial and really starting to look at the wider landscape, my first reaction was, oh, this is basically a avatar-based social network, right? You create your own avatar and you start to socialize and you make friends and you basically interact as an avatar, you chat, you do activities together, which I think take it into much more of a sort of 3D avatar-based social media platform rather than a video gaming platform, although the lines are starting to really blur between the two. But with around 20 million community of monthly active users today that powers this sort of unique avatar-based social network and marketplace of worlds and virtual goods, what is your vision for Zepeto and what role do you see Zepeto playing in the emerging space that people call metaverse or the wider paradigm shift of moving into a 3D internet?
Yeah, so I think the fundamental kind of difference or kind of approach that the lens we're taking on is, as opposed to like studios, usually studios define the worldview, mythology, art, and invite these players into this world and immerse themselves into the world. And that's how like a traditional game studio, a game industry work. But we're trying to kind of redefine the notion of play. And we want to make play powerful, and we give purposes to play. So I could go deeper into it. For example, what we're trying to do is not viewing the users as passive consumers or players, but we're trying to view them as an explorer with creative potential. So one example would be when users are done customizing their avatars. We can look at it from two different angles. One, it's a stepping stone for the business to sell more virtual wearable items because now you have an avatar to dress up, right? Or we can tell them, hey, look at you. You're a fashion stylist or makeup artist because you did the work. You did the creative work. It's your first ever creation on this platform. So we try to do the latter. So I think I know a lot of people view Zepeto as something in between TikTok and Roblox, a little bit of social media and a little bit of kind of gaming platform. So we can look at it from the two different angles. First, in order to be a creator in a social media space, you got to be producer, director, actor, and editor. Usually individuals or kind of small teams, if you're pretty big already. And in terms of game creator, game developer, it consists of concept artists, modelers, riggers, animator, UX designer, engineer, more professional and technical, and usually small, large teams. We're trying to connect or bridge the gap between the two. So it requires broader definition of creators. And their collaboration is key to the platform success. And we've been already seeing our users calling each other, organically connect and call them each other like producer, director, fashion stylist, models, voice actors, map builders, photo, video editor, promoter, manager. And they just give all these kind of names to the other users. And now it's about how we can incorporate their needs into the design of features, content, programs, and policies. But we'll keep helping people doing this too. Create to connect and connect to create.
That's very interesting. And so how do you think about, obviously we talked about the scale of Zepeto, which it's not small, right? 20 million monthly active users is quite fantastic. But when we look at other platforms in the wider space, it's Roblox, Fortnite Creative, which again, of course, are very different. I think maybe as a side note, it's so easy today to just dump too many names on, it's all metaverse. It's all competing one against other. I always like to dig in on the human element and the user motivation and people come into it.
Totally.
I'm curious, with Zepeto being born as a venture and a product, a community in South Korea, in what way the fact that it was born in Asia makes Zepeto different versus other platforms that we have seen that are born in the US? And how do you think that could serve you in scaling that uniqueness globally over time to grow exponentially the platform?
I see. Yeah, when Zepeto was first born, it was not an avatar-based social network, or there was no gaming element at all. It started as a 3D Bitmoji tool. In Korea and in a lot of Asian countries, people use more emojis, these emoticons, than Giphy, basically. So it's more kind of cutesy, kind of cartoony than like a Giphy, I would say. So it started from the need. We identified the user need because Snow, our parent company, was well known as a developer of a Snow camera app, which is like a snap filter version of camera with like blemishing, removing all the blemish, making the better version of yourself kind of camera apps. So we started from that need, and we saw people want to express their identities. And then what Avatar kind of enable is lift the barriers of self-expression and even exploration. So what I mean by that is we already have fractional contextual identities. the real world. So me as a leader, for example, me as a leader of an organization versus workout buddy or son, friend, surfer, that's all different. Some traits and attributes may be consistently shared. Some may be uniquely expressed depending on the context. So I think Koreans in particular, how I view as a kind of Korean American, I think Koreans have that relational communal group thinking, and it brings something into the table. So our identity is very contextual depending on what relation, what context we're in. And I think what Avatar enables is give users an opportunity to exaggerate some characteristic, to put some steroid on. If I want to surf all day, every day, then I couldn't really keep my job. But I have this imagination that, I want to probably live in this beautiful island surfing all day. And if I did that, this is what I would look like. So I think that kind of contextual, relational sense of identity kind of helps Zepeto to shape this vision to help people express themselves.
It's interesting. And thank you for the explanation. And I do think that across the board, what I think is happening now is really that globalized way of thinking about avatars and the possibility of self-expressing yourself. And I think we're now starting to see that in multiple different platforms, even though different platforms serve a different purpose for users, right? But that's a great springboard to talk about the role that you see for 3D avatars and the role they play as the internet evolved to be more of a 3D internet. I had multiple guests on the podcast from places like Unity and NVIDIA and companies that are building the tool set. And I know Zepeto, the experiences are built on Unity, for example, for the audience who didn't know. But I think what's clear is that a lot of people from some great companies believe that part of the metaverse is that evolution from a 2D internet to a 3D internet. And with that in mind, manifesting our personality and experiencing that internet is going to be managed or translated through a 3D avatar. And so what is your perspective on how 3D avatars, what is the bigger role they could potentially play as we evolve the internet to be more of an immersive network of virtual worlds? And how do you believe, and maybe some examples you're already seeing of how it actually shapes the next generation of human expression and socialization?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we did talk about the two different concept terms, avatar versus character. And it could be a representation of yourself, or it could be a totally imaginary being. And what we found interesting is average users have like at least 2 to 3 different avatars or characters. So which means you want to play with different gender, different personas, and see which one you want to use for certain context. So I think, just like I said, our contextual identity or fractional identities, people want to explore further through the avatar. And, that can only be possible when you have 3D representation, because, in the real world, you can probably wear a hat or some other costume to a certain degree to express that portion of your identity, but it's not like an on steroid version. So yeah, there's that. And I think the avatar can be also viewed as your creation too. So it's not just a tool or an account for commerce or media consumption, but it's a starting point of your creative journey. That's how we view. And I think in terms of the fractional identities, not only in this kind of new metaverse space with the 3D avatars, but also I think it may be why some people run multiple social media accounts. I've been seeing many people have full social media accounts, and there's an even feature to switch between different accounts, right? I think it's because you want to connect with the like-minded in each area to relate to different groups. So me as a surfer, me as an entrepreneur, me as a former recording artist, producer, people I like to interact with may not always overlap. So having this 3D avatar gives you opportunity to use what representation that you would like to go with when you interact with these people in a particular area. And also, in addition to the Asians were used to use these emojis that have been illustrated by artists, but that's not super personal. It's not about you, or you have another choice. You can use Giphy. So that was captured from television show, like 2-second snippet, but that's not you either. So I think 3D avatar give you higher fidelity and level of personalization than 2D emojis or GIFs. So you have more freedom in creative expression. And like I said, exaggerating some characteristic to make it fun and removing certain barriers to make yourself more approachable and relatable. I did a year-end party, the whole team did the year-end party last Friday, and I got the request from my team that they wanted me to sing for the year-end party. And I think maybe they had this image that, oh, our leader, he seems to be more of a problem solver, like a go-getter type than this artist with creative soul. But they wanted to see me from that angle, right? And imagine, Jan, if I have multiple personas, oh, this is entrepreneurial Jay, this is free soul music artist Jay. I can have multiple avatars to play around with.
No, I relate to that. I truly do. And I think we all exhibit that behavior, I think, all the way from childhood. I think technologists haven't been around to enable that. But
totally,
as a kid playing Super Mario or Super Sonic, I'm sure me and a million other kids saw ourselves to some extent in this character. That's why we enjoy watching movies. We relate to characters. Mm-hmm. I think the difference between characters and avatars is, in my mind at least, is that avatars, it's my expression. Mm-hmm. While characters, me relating to a character that someone else created. I think there's another piece to it, which I think we're only at the beginning of that, which is synthetic avatars or synthetic mm-hmm. beings. I have a 17-month-old baby girl, and I believe that generation is going to be growing up with friends that are completely virtual and completely artificial. I mm-hmm. think they will have friends with real avatar behaviors that real humans are behind those avatars. But I believe that we're going to have a whole new sort of almost like population of artificial avatars that are becoming friends and are growing with our kids. And I know it sounds crazy and weird, but I think it's happening. I mean, it's already happening mm-hmm. to some extent, right? With ChatGPT and all of these type of applications.
Totally.
From here up to an avatar that grows with my child and becomes a friend, and it's completely virtual. I don't think it's that far of a fetch. And that's why, in my mind, avatars really, and it's interesting because the Avatar, the movie just came out a few days ago. The notion of an avatar that expresses our personality and an avatar that we relate to, but actually it's completely artificial. I think, in my mind, this is also happening, and it's going to be part of that wider landscape. Do you have a point of view of how AI is going to potentially be impacting all of that?
Yeah, I think AI can be part of this identity. It's more of a kind of helping agent than the kind of independent identity being itself, I would say. Yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah, people would interact with AIs, but at the end of the day, who trains those AI? There should be some kind of personas, and depending on how to train, there could be bias as well. And there's always a human factor being involved in designing the algorithm and data set. So I think it would be kind of used to hopefully encourage people's interactions. And the AI can be a good kind of agent to foster that relationships. And I think another angle would be the pseudonymity and anonymity, like how people want to not disclose their real world identity and they don't want to be judged by their look or appearance or social status and all. And I think they're using the avatar because when you interact with these characters that has specific kind of personas defined, and it may not be like 100% you, kind of exaggerated version of you, or kind of lifted barriers to be more approachable. And people may have a different expectations and level of comfort. And I think if AI or the expression through avatar helps people feel more like I can approach to this person in a trustworthy and safe manner, I think the technology and the system design should evolve in that direction.
So let's switch back to brands. And obviously, you guys had a bunch of different brands that have activated on the Zepeto platform. I'd love to hear maybe one or two kind of case studies of here is what some amazing brands have done already on Zepeto, and provide a reference for the audience to try and imagine what can they create, or if they're a brand or an agency, which is a lot of the audience of the podcast. Love to hear maybe one or two case studies of brands that have activated and what they looked for, what they've accomplished, and what got the community excited.
Sure. Like a fashion brands, we did partnership with Gucci, Christian Louboutin, Nike, Adidas, and it's been more on not only the item sales drive the revenue, like immediate revenue, but it's more of a kind of brand awareness campaign, but also inviting the other creators to the co-creation kind of process. So one example would be we did a partnership with DressX, which is like digital native fashion brand, and they partner with our biggest creator. Her name is Monica. She has about 1 million followers. So they actually co-created the design together and launched it. So we were kind of seeing the new birth of Metaverse era Kanye West and Travis Scott type of designers who have their personalities, who have their fandoms, and who are not formally educated in the fashion industry as a designer, but who have their creative vision and partner with people who can turn that into the vision into more refined design, sellable items, so they can collaborate together. That could be one example. Another one, the better known brand like motor company called Hyundai. A lot of people are rolling their eyes, like, why is Hyundai what are they doing on Zepeto? Zepeto's like really big on 13 through 18. So yeah, more teenagers and skewed toward female. Motor company, what's their agenda? They wanted to kind of gain this brand awareness, whatever the adjective they wanted to convey, youthful or playful or stylish, let's say. And then I think that Hyundai can look at their marketing campaigns from different angles. Talking to this junior high school kids, parents, they may have a different angle. It's more reliable. It's 10-year warranty, or it's affordable, yes, stylish. They may have that different angle, but speaking to this potential buyers who can be the buyers in 2 to 3 years later, when they get a driver's license, we want to plant the seeds in their mind and speak to them with these values that they want to convey. And they rendered it as a gamified world. So there's a kind of kart rider type of mini cute racing game space. So you can hop on Hyundai designed cars in Zepeto look, of course, and drive around the urban space and have some fun. So that type of activation was pretty interesting too.
That's really interesting indeed. And I think, what's the opportunity at the moment, I believe, for brands, and I'm not surprised you're seeing these interesting experiments on Zepeto, is really building their relevancy to this new generation of consumers, right? These 12, 13, 15, 17, 18-year-olds are spending their time. And it's pretty clear that their behavior on the internet is unlike any other generation before. You and I,
right.
Facebook was the big thing when we were pretty much in high school or university. Now is absolutely relevant for young people. Even Instagram is not even that popular anymore with young people. They're on TikTok, they're on Snapchat, they're on Zepeto. And I think it's clear that these brands now need to be on this platform. And I'm expecting to see many more experiments on platforms.
Looking at it from a UGC marketing campaign activation angle, Zepeto is a great vehicle to create UGC and post to social media. Because when you look at Zepeto hashtag on TikTok, it has 21 billion views. To put it into perspective, it's more than Animal Crossing, IMVU, Sims, Avakin Live, more than all of them combined. Which means these kids not only enjoy the experience in this branded world, but also they create the content. They want to tell their stories and utilize these assets in the 3D space or animations or their characters as some source or ingredient for their storytelling. And brand exposure and even Zepeto exposure can be a nice byproduct of their effort to tell their stories to the world.
You mentioned Monica, which is an influencer on Zepeto and sort of a digital fashionista or big creator. What sort of wild things you imagine could potentially come out of a platform like Zepeto? A next generation fashion brand, a next generation makeup artist. Like, what type of personalities and creators you think can come out of? YouTube was the place where Mr. Beast was born, creator, and now potentially the first YouTuber to reach $1 billion net worth. Not that money is everything in life, but it shows wealth creation and an enterprise value of an individual. What are some of the stories over the next 5 to 10 years you think are at the moment totally crazy to think about, but hey, it might actually happen on Zepeto in the next 5 to 10 years?
Right. I think we can talk about just fashion. Traditionally, how fashion brands did, they try to find what would be the this year's trend, right? And they design their lookbook, like FW items should be like this or that. And there's a kind of the creative director, art director, type of like charisma, people with the charisma who have a lot of experience. Kind of big name creative executive, let's say. And that has been the way. And I think what we could see probably in the near future, maybe 2-3 year future, would be this creators with niche audience. They already established their kind of fan base and they know their customers and they know what kind of designs speak to them. So we could look at it from a demand forecasting angle. So Nike acquired Artifact. And I think what they could do would be, hey, what kind of this futuristic design, more kind of game inspired design, what type of people would react to this type of design? And how do we forecast their demand so that we can make a better decision? Let's make millions of this new pairs of shoes and 70% of them have to be wasted in the warehouse. And how do we get rid of them through Black Friday sales? That has been the traditional way. And then I think what we could see is, at least for this design, we have 100,000 people with a higher probability, let's say 70%, 60% of them would potentially buy this. And we know how to market them because they have been following these creators and they have been showing the history of purchase of similar looking items. So I think that kind of like a different way of production, design, deployment, distribution can be one example.
I do believe that categories like fashion, like beauty, that are really key to expressiveness are probably the low-hanging fruit when it comes to people are going to want. But I think once we establish our avatar identity in more from the, let's call it, the appearance expressive side of things, I mean, we can do a lot of other things with that, right? Maybe I want to turn my avatar into a musician or athlete and slot myself into some other type of games and experiences related to that topic. I mean, it's almost like this parallel reality where anyone can be anything they want, but it actually comes to life in a meaningful way versus just the appearance expressiveness. Not to say that I don't think that's exciting, but it does feel to me like what we're seeing now, we're not even scratching the surface of what it means for humans to own a set of avatars virtually that can really be anything. Is why I think of it as, in the future, the global population could probably be more than 100 billion people because all of us can have multiple different avatars in the metaverse. Suddenly the global population, I don't know if everyone will get a social security number, but for sure they can at least have a personality and a sense of existence. And that's a bit of a crazy concept. Let's switch gears and talk about Naver's home country, which is South Korea. South Korea has always been an innovator when it comes to shaping new business models and experiences in the consumer internet, especially interactive entertainment. I don't know if that's a fact or I just invented a fact, but live operations, live services in a way was born out of Korea gaming companies. So there's always been a lot of innovation when it comes to interactive entertainment business model. And so what are you seeing today on Zepeto or more broadly in Asian consumer internet that you believe can shape what the metaverse become?
Yeah, like I said, I think what makes up the metaverse, a couple different industry would be, the game and the entertainment, virtual communities, and social media. And Korea has all of them. Play game developers like PUBG, Nexon, NC, and the Naver, Kakao, those two rivals have been focusing on like a creator-driven entertainment platforms like Webtoon, Wattpad, Radish. So they're digital comics, serialized fiction, kind of UGC platforms. And like Zepeto, there's an interactive avatar social network / gaming experience platform. And also another pillar would be this K-pop or K-drama, this kind of cultural product. I don't know if we could call BTS or Blackpink as product. They're artists, but also they're manufactured too, in some sense. So I think what we're seeing in Korea is these dots are being connected. A lot of kind of joint ventures and M&A have been happening in this creator-driven entertainment platform space. And also, yeah, like recently for the past year or two, Zepeto, like Naver, partnered with PUBG on a new kind of Web3 native metaverse. And yeah, there's been a lot of kind of joint venture type of collaboration happening to connect this dot, like how to build a higher fidelity game. And we have been building these kind of social communities. How can we help? How can we kind of, bring our expertise and experience to the table so that we can collaborate better? A lot of this is happening. So I think it's pretty interesting to see how all these different moving pieces being overlapped and intersected and see what kind of new things can keep happening. In addition to these different players in the different industry being connected, find how to collaborate together, but also South Korea has its unique power that it's really relational and communal group identities bring to the table. And it started speaking to non-Koreans and Asians as well. So one example would be the BTS Army. So Army is how they call themselves, the defense. I think they're beyond just consumers or of concert or streamed music. In this digital era, they still buy physical albums, either because they want to have something tangible, collectible, or they have the mission to have BTS new album top the Billboard chart. And they have an emotional stake in BTS growth. It's not just a group of consumers, but a community that is collectively creative and collaborative. And they create these fictional stories in writing, illustration, animated stories for fun, and they distribute information, mobilize other fans to collaborate on kind of big campaigns like, yeah, let's celebrate this artist's birthday. And they chip in to buy a billboard spot in a subway station. And if we view all of this with this phenomena, with the consumerism and tokenomics angle, there's so many things that these fans don't make sense. Yeah, so I think we should definitely take a look into what moved these people to open up their wallet to, buy a billboard spot.
That's insane.
And yeah, commenting, co-creating these fan fictions. And they're looking for something beyond monetizing their creativity, but they're looking for this deep sense of connection and try to find the meanings from their interactions.
So, Jay, with this new frontier in such a nascent stage, and it's all very new, but yet familiar in some ways because we've all been part of video game communities over the last 20 years and have been excited about it. You're now leading Naver's efforts with Zepeto in the US. But what does that journey mean for you personally? What sort of drive you to be part of this new frontier, and what gets you excited about building at the moment?
Yeah, I don't know if I told you before, I used to be a recording artist, music producer before getting into tech industries. I understand what it's like to be a creator. And I do have this underdog mentality because, the reason that I gave up on my musician dream was because I couldn't really find the possibility to build this network or access to capital as an artist. So I think a lot of it could be, I'm at a really interesting place where my passion can be aligned with the business needs. And I've been telling the team what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, and what the company, what the world needs, where those three circles overlap is the best fit. So current position is the best fit for me because I spent 7 years in the music industry and 10 plus years in the tech industry. And now I'm kind of, how do I help this younger generation not give up on their dream and keep tapping their creative potential and grow from a user to a creator to an entrepreneur? And I've been seeing a lot of people with the entrepreneurial mentality. What I mean by that is just keep doing the iteration and try to find the product market fit, whether it's a fashion item or 3D world, interactive games. Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of people who have that entrepreneurial mentality with that ability to express creatively. They have been becoming successful creators in Zepeto. So I would love to keep cultivating the environment and fostering this journey. That would be probably my main drive. Just like we see many college dropouts becoming tech entrepreneurs, I'd like to see more of this aspiring creators continue to challenge the status quo and redefine how fashion brands are born, marketed, and sell, and how animation films are produced and distributed, and how games are built and updated. And we're going to see new ways of doing of all of this.
I'm with you. I think it's really excited. I love that vision you have and the reason why you're involved. And I also think that who would have known, but Marx could not have been more wrong, right? Because the means of productions are now being completely democratized and being made accessible. And I think we're at the beginning of seeing a whole new creator generation who are learning to create, but are also learning to build a business around their creation. And I think that's the big unlock in my mind, because great content can come from anywhere. Sure, we're still going to have big, massive $250 million productions of movies like Avatar, but that doesn't mean that will be necessarily the most successful piece of content people would want to consume. It could well be something that a 15-year-old on Zepeto has created versus something that was created by H&M or Zara or Uniqlo, right? And so I think that's what's exciting here, and why I believe companies like Zepeto are at the intersection of technology and creativity and culture, and really empowering those experiences. And I think there's a whole generation of young people who that's what they want to consume, and that's what they want to be part of, which is really exciting. And that leads me to the concluding question for the episode today. What's the one thing you want the audience to take away from the conversation?
Yeah, it's echoing what you said, earlier, like a basic human needs and human motivation. Yeah, I think whether it's a product development or investment, I think what should be at the core is understanding of human. So I think we should focus on what it means to be human. What are our needs and desires, and how do we unmask the concepts that we don't get to do enough deconstruction? So I'll take Web3 as an example. Why decentralization? Why tokenomics? Like behind them, I think there's a learned mistrust and kind of longing for transparency and justice. And then I think we should look at what's getting in the way of this mistrust. And if greed is still the kind of core engine and the money is the fuel, then I don't think we're doing innovation or kind of revolution. We're just reinventing or reskinning the wheel and not solving the real problem. So I think like having this lens that money itself may not be the root of motivation, but deep down, we all know that we're looking for is we want to be seen, known, understood, and valued. And I think a lot of people in the industry should really keep in mind that how we design the platform product, having this values in mind.
We want to be seen, known, understood, and valued. I love that. That's a great place to wrap up, Jay. Thank you so much for joining me and really sharing your perspective and the wonderful work that Zepeto is doing. And if you all enjoyed the episode, please like it, share it once it goes live, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Jay, thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Into the Metaverse. We hope you learned a lot and explored new aspects of the Metaverse.